He is the best-known resident of the imaginary land of Lake Wobegon, the locale of his extremely popular public radio show, the setting of many of his top-selling novels, and the background for his 2006 film, A Prairie Home Companion. But there's more to this man. He is a humorist, a columnist, a musician, screenwriter, and the host of the Writers Almanac. Hello, I'm Ernie Manouse. Coming up on Interviews, our conversation with the Radio Hall of Fame inductee, Garrison Keillor. What's the key to telling a good story?
To have an audience, to have people who want to listen to you. It should be quiet. It should be dark, probably. And then you just start at the beginning. You have some idea of where you're headed, and you sort of surprise yourself in the middle.
Is it different telling a story to a group of people as opposed to telling it over the radio, to broadcasting it?
Well, yes, because if you told a story to a group of people, as you know, not if you're paid to stand up and entertain an audience, that's something else. But if you tell a story to a group of people, you're probably talking to your friends. You don't tell stories to people you don't trust, you don't like. Your friends are the inspiration for telling a story, I think. You know, people who bring out the best in you, and stories are the best in you. Much better than, all the sermons that we have to give, and all of our ponderous opinions about the world.
Is the audience then for your show friends of yours? Do you approach it that way?
Yes, because they're in the dark. I don't really see them. They're there, and when they laugh, it gives you a boost, and you kind of ride on their enthusiasm. If they're not enthusiastic, you plow forward and you do what you need to do. You tell your story. But if they're really having a great time, it's a real boon. Then you kind of toss in extra things, and you feel free to throw in diversions and discouragings.
If you were doing Prairie Home Companion without a studio audience, without a theater audience, I guess is a better way to put it, would you be able to get the same feeling from your performance?
It wouldn't have the same tempo, I think. And I think it would always be in danger of becoming ponderous and kind of self-important and maudlin. Just because I have really strong tendencies in that way anyway. I have a strong weakness for being pretentious, like right there, what I just said there. And because I'm an English major, and, you come by it naturally. You start out reading Paradise Lost and, go on from there.
So then how did you know this would work for an audience? How did you know it wouldn't fall into the self-important realm? How did you know it would stay fresh and fun?
Well, you have to make it fresh and fun because left to its own devices, it'll skid off the road, and you will start to do important shows on themes, and you'll win prizes. Prizes are the kiss of death in broadcasting, and anybody who's won more than 4 or 5 ought to be ashamed of themselves. No, it really depends on the audience. That's why you go on tour. You always love to get that audience that's never seen a radio show before, and they're intrigued, and there are the musicians and the actors, and there's the sound effects guy, and he's got the door that opens, and he's got the coconut shells and the telephone that will do 4 different rings, and they're intrigued by that idea. They're seeing something that the audience can't see, the audience at home.
There was a show that you did where you went to Mark Twain's home, And I was listening to it, and the part that struck me as very interesting from a production point of view was you went, in a sense, inside the house on location to another room. There were people in other rooms reporting back to you where you were, as opposed to everyone being in the same place within the house. Why did you decide to approach it that way?
I just wanted to get upstairs. I wanted to get up to where he played pool, where I accidentally busted his cue ball. It was a really old cue ball, and I don't know why they let me play pool with Mark Twain's cue ball, but I hit it, and it just broke into powder. I wanted to get around, and also because I was really fascinated by the house. It's a gorgeous house, and there isn't another like it in America. I started the show under a tree in his front yard, and I came in. The audience was sitting in the dining room, living room, and a sort of little parlor off to the side. And it was a show that was great to do once, but I'll never do it again.
Why?
It was meant for television. It was not meant for radio.
Yeah.
It would have been so much better on television and without an audience there.
Really?
Yeah, it was one of those, lovely mistakes that you make.
But it's a great show.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting show, but you really have to see the house. You have to see the mantle and the conservatory. Sort of put a conservatory in towards the end of the living room, and there are all these plants there. It's very Victorian, but there's something Midwest and steamboat about the building too.
Take me all the way back then. What made you want to get into radio in the first place?
I needed work. I needed a job. I was an English major. I wanted to be a writer. That was my intent. But I had to earn some money to put myself through school. And radio was easy to do. If you had grown up listening to radio, you had those voices of newscasters in your head. I used to be able to do Edward R. Murrow, and maybe I do him without knowing it. But even as a 19-year-old kid, you could walk into a studio, sit down at a green felt table with some yellow AP copy that you'd edited, and you could do Edward R. Murrow. Mm-hmm. Wasn't that hard. And then, I was it was a classical music station. It was a public radio station, a university station. And to introduce, the Mass in B minor by Johann Sebastian Bach, and here's Helmut Rieling conducting, the Collegium Musicum. Not hard. Doesn't require much. It's an easy living.
But doing that, being a DJ, being an announcer, is very different than where you ended up. How did you make that transition then? Because even in the time you were doing it, it was old-time radio that people weren't doing anymore.
Yes, but it was so far in the past that it seemed like an innovation. It had been dead for so long that by the time a Prairie Home Companion started in 1974, that sort of show had been gone, except for the Grand Ole Opry, had been gone for 20 years. And that's the secret of innovation. You just go way back in the past.
And then it's fresh again.
Yeah, you find something really, really old.
So what made you look for that, though? Why were you looking back? Why were you trying to come up with something new as opposed to... Because from your voice, you could have just been an announcer. You could have been a great announcer and been a writer. Why did you decide to try and find this?
Announcing was boring. It wasn't... It didn't really engage a person. I mean, it shouldn't have. I mean, it doesn't take much to sit in a studio and make a kind of a finely rounded voice. There's nothing to that. And to sit in a studio and impersonate intelligence is not difficult either. I mean, I was an English major, so I knew how to impersonate intelligence. I knew how to write term papers about books that I'd never read. I just was looking for something that was more fun. When you grow up shy and introverted, it has unfortunate effects on you. You could take 25 minutes just to talk about that, but you get tired of being introverted. And here is a here's a fairly safe situation in which you can come out of yourself and you can work with other people, interesting people, musicians, all kinds of musicians, and you can extend yourself.
Have you ever gotten over the shyness?
No, it's always around. I think anybody from the Midwest has a case of it. You know, the moment you go to the coasts, you know, you feel like maybe you got the wrong shoes on, or you know, should I be wearing this shirt?
Yeah. How soon after you started Prairie Home Companion did you realize this is catching on? People are enjoying this. This could work.
Well, any intimations of success would make somebody like me extremely nervous, because I was brought up in a fundamentalist group that believed that success, worldly success, is the surest sign that you have gone seriously wrong. So one never gets over that. The show went national. It went up on satellite in 1980, and then I tried to retire in 1987 and tried to run away from it, and then I brought it back in 89, and there it is, still there.
When we talk about success, though, do you consider it a success? How do you value that for yourself?
No, I think that the audience makes it a success, and that has nothing to do with me. It has very little to do with me. I do the best I can, and working within one's own head, one tries to keep it sharp, and one tries to write every week and work at it. But in the end, it's all what happens, in somebody's car, and they're driving up to New Hampshire, or somebody's driving a truck, across Montana, and he picks this up and he pulls into a rest stop and he listens to something, and it has a big impact on him. But I didn't do that. It was just bringing two things in collusion with each other.
Yeah. Is it true that you don't work with a script?
The story from Lake Wobegon, no, you wouldn't want to do that. It's a very nice form. You start out by talking about the weather. It's been cold, and that leads you in a certain direction, and then you have an idea of 2 or 3 story elements, and then you wind it up. It's supposed to be 20 minutes long, and this last week it was exactly 20 minutes long. It was really quite...
So it worked.
Really quite amazing, yes. It was a complicated story having to do with ice fishing and an enormous fish and a fishing dog who's trained to go under the ice and get fish. And the fish is too big and it eats the dog. And out of this comes a new species of dogfish with little black noses and long tails and nails, like toenails, on their fins. And they are able to smell alcohol. And they have a way of scratching from under the ice to cut a line in the ice so that fish houses in which men are drinking sink into the water.
Okay, so how much of this do you know going in this is the direction it's going to go, and how much just comes to you while you're working through it?
Oh, that story. I knew that story backward and forward because it all depended so much on each little interlocking piece. That was not the sort of thing that you could make up. Whereas if you were talking about your Aunt Evelyn, you knew Aunt Evelyn, so you could make up a good deal. If you're talking about winter, I can talk to you about winter, for the next 30 minutes.
But then how do you keep it interesting? Because we've all been seated next to someone who can talk about a topic for 30 minutes, and you want to get out of there and kill yourself. Where in your case, people tune in. They come back week after week.
They can always turn it off.
But why do you think it is that they stay? Why do you think they keep coming back?
I don't know that they stay. They may not stay. I'm not necessarily pushing for them to stay. I don't think that listening to the show listening to the radio or watching TV is the most fascinating thing you can do with your life. So if they go away, that's fine. Presumably they went away to do something finer and better.
But those that didn't go away, I'm going to get you to answer this question. Those that didn't leave, what is it in your delivery that keeps them hanging on? What are they waiting for?
They're shut-ins. They're in assisted living, and they're unable to get up out of the chair.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'll let it go at that point then.
I don't know.
Okay, when you started writing books then, and you were writing the books, and then you wrote, of course, about Lake Wobegon.
Right.
There are people out there who don't realize this is a fictitious place. You realize that?
I've not met any. I've met people who said they used to think it was a real place, but they'd been disabused of that by the time I met them. No, I don't think that's a problem. I think it's pretty clearly fictitious. Although there are places in Minnesota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, Iowa, where if you were dropped in there, you would be in a different world than the national media world. The world that is kind of the smoothed off version of America.
So much of our country has become homogenized now.
Yeah.
Are we losing something when all of that happens? Because, so much of your work is about remembering small-town America, Midwest America, and we're losing so much of that with this, or aren't we? What's your feeling on that?
No, I don't think so. I think that there's an enormous chasm between people my age and people in their late teens and early 20s. There's an enormous difference. It's a whole new breed of people. I think it's fascinating, and I make no judgment about it. And I love to observe them. We're back in an era of immigration in America, both legal and non, which is like the middle of the 19th century, when there were enormous parts of this country where English was a second language. Mm-hmm. This is coming back. Yeah. So, no, I think we try to create this homogeneity, but it immediately falls apart, because it's not what people are looking for. Uniformity. This is a nation of individuals. I think we're much more uniform back in the 1950s. Homogeneous. Yeah. I have a hard time saying homogeneous.
You said it. You got it out there. Let me ask you a little about then the essays that you write. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, as I understood it, you didn't say if you were Democrat, Republican. You pretty much were, you looked for honesty. And then you write a book called Homegrown Democrat, mm-hmm. which pretty much basically is telling me you're saying, okay, I am a Democrat.
Right.
Why the change?
Well, it wasn't a change. I'd been a Democrat since I was 18. And in Minnesota, I'd always done fundraisers for, various losing liberal candidates, and so I was kind of known as kind of a brave, loser, a picker of of defeat in Minnesota, and I wrote it to gin up my fellow Democrats, the Democratic Farm Labor Party in Minnesota, after the death of Senator Paul Wellstone. And I love these people, and I had never seen them so low as they were when he died in a plane crash about 10 days before the election. And they just were on the ground, and they just needed something, and so I wrote that book, and that's why I wrote it. It has a lot of invective in it. I love invective. English is a great language for invective, and I don't regret it. I noticed that there was a Republican blog that took a little piece of invective from my book, and they named their blog "Nihilists in Golf Pants."
So a little ode to you.
It's just language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about language, one thing that I truly enjoy that you've done year in and year out for quite a few years is the joke show on Prairie Home Companion. Mm-hmm. How did that come to start? And I think what's so amazing to me about it is the rapid-firedness at which these jokes just keep coming.
Well, it started because I felt that the joke was in danger. That, everybody used to know somebody who would tell them jokes. And you'd meet people in a cafe in a small town, and people would know the latest jokes. And whenever something disastrous happened or something big in the news, not long afterward there would be jokes come down the pike. And I just felt that it was vanishing, and so somebody should do something in behalf of it. Comedians, television comedians, professional comedians don't care for jokes. It's sort of alien territory for them, or it's something antique to them. But I love them. They're little constructions of language, and they're a great way to teach kids the importance of exactly the right word and the importance of economy.
Yeah.
When you add 10 words to a joke that's 100 words long, you've killed it. And kids know that. Whenever I've taught writing to kids, I always start with jokes. I always start with writing comedy, the place where precision is really important.
Yeah. Talking about writing, you also wrote a screenplay to the movie Prairie Home Companion.
I tried.
How was that different than the other things you've written?
Hard.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Why?
I don't know. I think that I don't know. I just didn't have the wherewithal to do it. I worked at it, and I think I sort of patched up the mistakes that I made so that it was presentable, and it had interesting pieces in it. It's not that. It's just the construction, the form of it.
Not comfortable for you?
Had a real problem with it. Every day I would go to work on that thing, and I would look at what I'd written the day before, and every day was really discouraging. It's not that way when you write prose fiction. You write something good, and it stays good,
yeah.
I think.
Why wasn't this the same way, though?
I don't know. I haven't given up. I really like the idea of writing lines that actors would say, and I'd get to sit and watch them do it, and I wouldn't have to be up there. I like that, especially, as I get older and less presentable. And but I don't know. It's like writing in the sand somehow.
I heard that while you were writing it, there weren't drafts of it. You just kept reworking the same, in a sense, document. So there is no first draft, second draft of this, that it kind of kept evolving on itself.
Well, that happens when you write on a computer. There's no draft. But Robert Altman let me rewrite on the set. And
is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it was good for me. I think it was good for the movie, because you're there and you're watching the dailies, and you learn a lot. So I was able to take scripts out of actors' hands and across the mountain, write in new words. They were very tolerant, and most of the time they actually did the lines that I wrote. So.
And wrote yourself into it, your own idea, or was that Robert Altman's, or how was it that you were part of it?
Well, it's a movie about a radio show, and a radio show needs to have a host or an MC or somebody. And I had thought that somebody else was going to play that part. But he kept saying it was going to be me. So then I had to make the part small and not require myself to do any acting in it.
Yeah.
Not have me break down in tears.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do that.
When you watch the film back, what do you get from it?
Oh, there's parts of it that I adore. I adore a scene with Meryl Streep and Lily Tomlin, and they're in a dressing room, and there are all these mirrors, and it's so bright, it's beautifully lit, and it's shot direct to disc, and it just has a glow about it. Ed Lockman was the cinematographer, and it's just a beautiful piece of work. And they did a beautiful thing with the dialogue that I wrote, and they sort of layer it, and it's sort of contrapuntal, and they're repeating back and forth, and it's overlapping, and it's just gorgeous. It's about 12 gorgeous minutes, and I could have made a whole movie like that.
Yeah. When you wrote it, were you looking at it visually?
No.
So then it was a treat to see and a surprise, I guess.
Yeah, kind of a shock too. You know.
Of all of the mediums you've worked in, what's your favorite?
I love to sit down and write. I write a newspaper column, and I think that maybe that's my favorite. Although I love books, but books are scary. But I sit down and work at a keyboard with a screen every day of my life, and when I see it on paper, I'm really charmed by it, I must say. I never got over that.
Wow.
I don't get any pleasure from listening to my voice. I don't get any pleasure whatsoever from seeing myself. I would walk around the block to avoid having to look at myself on a screen, but on paper.
Well, we thank you that you've taken the time to let yourself be seen on screen and heard, and all that you've written. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ernie.
Garrison Keillor.
To order a DVD of this or any episode of InnerVIEWS, please visit HoustonPBS.org.